since the start of detail, chain buys were a thing. Are
Yeah.
you referring to chain buying when sum of subnets is below 1? Or is chain buying more extensive than that?
So the way how this buying from the chain works and how it initially worked is that when one calculates how much alpha should be injected into a subnet in the subnet pool, then the alpha injected is calculated by taking the tau emissions and dividing them by the alpha price. So let's say my tau emissions are 1 because I just get all the block emission, and my price is 1. Then 1 by 1 is 1. So okay, everything is great. We are injecting 1 alpha into the pool. Now let's say that my tau emissions are still 1, but my price decreases to 0.5. Then now, if you were to calculate it, it's 1 divided by 0.5, so it will be 2. So 2 alpha gets injected into the subnet pool. And that's not possible. And technically, if one would want to drive this idea further, the more you decrease the price while the emissions stay same, or the bigger the difference becomes, the more alpha would be getting injected. So when you divide by 0.25, because the price is now 0.25, then you have to inject 4 alpha into the pool to keep the price neutral, to not cause any buy or sell pressure. And that is not ideal because technically you could just mint many alpha tokens during one block, and that would speed up the inflation. And just generally speaking, make a lot of a mess in the pools. So there was this alpha downscaling mechanism. And the alpha downscaling mechanism essentially does so that if the alpha injected would be higher than 1, then it will be downscaled to 1. And what now happens, if you just were to do this, you downscale the amount of alpha, but you keep the tau the same. So that means based on how you inject tau per alpha, it will be more. There will be more tau than alpha, and it will create a buy pressure or increase the price if you were to inject them. This is how it existed before, how it existed initially, where just more tau was injected per alpha, and passively the price increased. The pool balance changed. But when the switch was made to using Uniswap v3, it doesn't use typical liquidity pools. It now uses concentrated liquidity pools. And with them, the injection into the pool can't change the price. So the amount of tau has to also be reduced. And what we do now is, for example, if I have 1 tau being injected and my price is 0.5, so we would have to inject 2 alpha, reduce it to 1, and now also reduce the tau to the price. So instead of 1, we only inject 0.5 tau. And what this means is I inject 0.5 tau and 1 alpha. So 0.5 tau per 1 alpha gives you the 0.5 price. And the excess tau, how it's called, that we now have, because I originally was eligible for 1 tau emissions, but we only injected 0.5 of them. The other 0.5 will be now used to buy the subnet alpha token, causing buy pressure, also effectively changing the price. And from this swap, some alpha gets taken out of the pool. This alpha will be recycled.
Interesting. Okay, so the chain buy mechanism is literally the chain buying or staking to a pool and then just recycling the alpha instead of them like taking ownership of the alpha.
Otherwise, the chain would hold alpha or something like that. And the way it works is that the chain buys, or like the chain swaps tau for alpha, and this increases the price. And the bigger the difference between the tau emissions and the price, the more it buys. But as it buys the subnet's alpha, the price increases. So the price comes closer to the emissions. And the closer it comes, the less it buys. So the buy pressure gets lower from the chain. And if it meets each other, so when the emissions and the price are equal, then it doesn't buy anything anymore. Because the goal of it is essentially that the goal is to not inject more than 1 alpha, to say it this way, but the different goal is to just bring the price to the emissions so that this issue doesn't happen. And when on the opposite, because if the price is lower than emissions, we inject a lot of alpha. If the price is higher than the emissions, then the alpha being injected gets reduced. So if I only have 0.5 tau emissions, but I have a price of 1, and 0.5 divided by 1, 0.5. So only 0.5 alpha would be injected. So essentially the way how to view how much alpha is being injected into the pool is it's one, or like it's exactly at the balance when it's meeting the emissions. When it's lower, it would be more. That causes the chain to have to buy to bring it up. But if the price would be higher, then less alpha will be injected into the pool.
And this chain buying would also push out the alpha halving cycles, right?
Essentially, yes, because alpha is being taken out of the pool and alpha is being recycled. So it delays how much alpha as effectively goes into the issuance every day. But for most part, the amounts of alpha are pretty small, mostly because the chain buys are not like very, very strong.
Yeah.
And because the difference mostly closes pretty fast. And on the other side, it doesn't happen also too often or for a long time, because the way how this mechanism works is it wants to close this gap. It wants to stop the chambers. Like it will not continue forever for the next few years. So it does, but with a pretty small influence, I would say.
Today is December 9th. When is the estimated Tau halving to happen, the first Tau halving?
If nothing changed in the last 24 hours, then it would be December 15th.
Okay, December 15th. So we're about 6 days out of the first halving for Bittensor. What is your opinion on the Tau halving? Because if you look around Twitter, there's a lot of people saying the halving's bearish. And then Const is saying, I can't believe people think the halving's bearish.
Yeah.
What does the Bittensor GPT have to say on the subject matter?
I have seen that, and I don't think I think there's one misconception of what people think will gonna happen, and that's that rewards to the participants, so like the miner incentives or the dividends to validators, that those will also decrease. That there was also halve, because that's kind of what one would expect. Like a usual Bitcoin halving, for example, reduces the rewards of the participants. The issue probably there is that the way how the halvings work in Bittensor, at least since DTAU, is that the Tau halving only reduces the issuance of Tau, and Tau only goes into subnet pools to provide liquidity into a subnet pool. So the only thing that happens is that the liquidity growth for a subnet pool will be reduced. And because, as I just explained, that's a pretty good fundamental information to know. As I just explained, that the alpha injected is calculated by taking the tau emission and the price. Because tau emission is part of the equation, if the tau emission drops by half, then the amount of alpha injected also drops by half. But that doesn't mean that the alpha injected is being halved itself, because that would mean it can't increase above 0.5 again. The cap of the alpha injected is from the alpha halving and from the alpha emission. It will only reduce in value by 50%, but it could still increase if the conditions were to change. So the only thing that happens is that the liquidity injections get reduced. And the rewards for participants, that means miner incentives, the owner cut, that means for everybody that's staking the tau or staking alpha, the APY will stay the same. The rewards for the root nominators, so for everybody staking tau and root, everything will stay same. The only thing is the injections, and the injections will have a impact on staking and unstaking, because less liquidity goes into the pools. That means that long term for newer subnets, for example, staking and unstaking will be more volatile because there's less liquidity in the pools.
So there's two different halving schedules essentially.
Yes.
One for the tau in and alpha in, and then one for the alpha out. That's the actual rewards to participants of subnets. So the tau halving affects the pools only. So this means there's now a cap of 0.5 tau per block admitted. Does this mean the alpha injection cap is also 0.5 alpha per block going into the pools?
The cap of the alpha injection will still be 1, because the cap of the alpha injection, since recently, to be fair, it was changed around about the time when the inflow EMAs replaced the price emissions. So the way how the cap now works is that it is synced with the alpha halving, or like with the alpha emissions. So that means it will stay 1 for the next 2 years. And when the alpha halving happens, then it will reduce to 0.5. Now, as I explained in the beginning, depending on where the tau emissions are and where the price is, the amount of alpha injected can be either kept to 1, the chain will buy here when it's below. If the price is above, then the amount of alpha being injected will get reduced. So let's go through a halving, for example. If I have 1 tau being emitted into my subnet and my price is 1, then they are equal. That means 1 alpha gets injected. Now, if we halve the tau emissions, then it's 0.5. Dividing it by the price of 1, that results in 0.5 alpha being injected. So because the emissions drop, the alpha injected also drops. Now, the cap is still 1. So technically, if, for example, the price were to decrease also, then alpha injected will be 1 again. Or the emissions will increase by twice. Then it would be also alpha injected 1 again. So alpha injected can still be 1 after tau halving for a subnet. It just needs the emissions to increase or the price to decrease so that they both are in sync again.
So in practice, this means we'll likely see the alpha injections kind of half across the board.
Most likely, yeah. For smaller subnets, for example, where the price is very small, then for them to get emissions that are twice as high as the price is much easier than, for example, for a subnet that has a very high price already. So it can also happen for a very high price subnet like Truths, for example. If they get twice the emissions of the price, they will also have 1 alpha injected. But for a smaller subnet that has lower liquidity, so it's easier to move the price, and also the price is very low, so it's much easier to get twice as much in emissions. For them, the alpha injected could be 1, and the chain could buy the alpha token, or like swap the alpha token, if they would have this condition.
And how are individual subnet halvings affected by their registration time in proximity to when the tau halving occurs?
So the way how the alpha halvings are affected got changed recently also, especially because of what I mentioned, that the alpha injected is scaling with the alpha halving. So the cap actually stays 1. Now, the way it worked before, and anybody that doesn't want this confusion should probably skip this section for the next few minutes. The way it worked before is that the alpha injected scaled with the tau halving. So actually, after December 15th, if we would have not made the change, then the cap of the alpha injected would be also 0.5. Now, what this means is tau halves every 4 years, and the subnets are supposed to halve every 2 years. And to kind of explain this is if you view at the alpha injected into a pool and the alpha emitted into a subnet, when we have the tau halving, the alpha injected reduces. And that's 4 years. And it will take 4 years for that to happen again. Now, when the alpha halving happens, the alpha emissions reduces. That takes 2 years. Then another alpha halving happens because it takes another 2 years. Then the tau halving happens because 2 alpha halvings each 2 years. That means it takes 4 years. So technically, the alpha halving happens twice as much as the tau halving. And what that means is that over time, as they decrease, the alpha halving would be much further in time than the tau halving. So, for example, first tau halving, the 2 alpha halvings. And that means that the alpha emitted is lower than the tau emitted per block. This caused the alpha halvings to compress. This means they would have happened much faster than they were intended to, because the alpha halving would have only halved the alpha emitted.